Don't just learn to know, learn to do, because knowledge without action is powerless. You can read, listen, study, and understand all day long, but nothing changes until you move. Acting as if everything is working out for you means trusting that action will refine you, not waiting until you feel perfect or prepared. Growth does not come from what you know. It comes from what you repeatedly apply. The world rewards execution, not intention. Most people collect information as a way to feel productive, but comfort disguised as progress keeps them stuck. Learning becomes a hiding place when it replaces action. When you learn to do, you step into discomfort, uncertainty, and growth. You accept that mistakes are part of the process and that clarity comes after movement, not before it. Acting as if everything is working out allows you to move forward with confidence even when the outcome is uncertain. Knowing creates potential, but doing creates identity. The moment you act, you become someone who takes responsibility for results. You stop waiting for motivation and start building momentum. Each action, no matter how small, trains your mind to trust your ability to figure things out along the way. That trust fuels confidence, and confidence fuels consistent action. This is how change compounds. Learning to do also sharpens focus. When you act, feedback is immediate. You see what works and what doesn't. You adjust. You improve. This real-world feedback is far more valuable than endless preparation because it turns theory into skill. Acting as if everything is working out keeps you flexible and resilient, helping you adapt instead of freezing when things don't go as planned. Action dissolves fear. Fear grows in stillness and overthinking. When you move, fear loses its grip because your attention shifts from imagined problems to real solutions. You realize that most obstacles are manageable once you face them. Each step forward proves that you are capable, even when conditions are imperfect. That proof builds confidence faster than any amount of learning alone. Learning to do also creates discipline. Discipline is not about forcing yourself, it's about committing to action regardless of mood. When you act consistently, your habits align with your goals. You no longer depend on inspiration because progress itself becomes motivating. Acting as if everything is working out keeps you grounded during setbacks and focused during success, allowing you to stay consistent over time. This mindset transforms how you view failure. Failure becomes feedback instead of a verdict. When you learn by doing, mistakes are data points that guide improvement. You stop personalizing setbacks and start extracting lessons. This detachment allows you to keep moving forward without losing confidence or momentum. Doing also builds clarity. You stop guessing and start knowing through experience. Decisions become easier because you trust your ability to adjust. You develop intuition rooted in action rather than speculation. Acting as if everything is working out reinforces this trust, helping you stay calm and decisive even when outcomes are uncertain. Don't just learn to know, learn to do, because action is the bridge between where you are and who you want to become. Acting as if everything is working out empowers you to step forward with confidence, embrace growth, and turn knowledge into results. One day, you will realize that your biggest breakthroughs didn't come from what you learned, but from the moments you chose to act despite uncertainty. Knowledge has no power until it is applied through action because understanding something intellectually does not automatically change behavior, results, or reality. You can know what to do, know how it works, and know why it matters, yet remain exactly where you are if that knowledge never leaves your mind and enters your actions. Information alone does not transform lives, execution does. Action is the force that activates knowledge and turns potential into progress. Many people confuse learning with growth. They read, watch, listen, and absorb, believing that accumulation of knowledge equals advancement. It feels productive, safe, and satisfying, yet without action it becomes stagnant. Knowledge sitting unused is like a tool left in a box, valuable in theory but useless in practice. Real growth begins when knowledge is tested, challenged, and refined through experience. Action exposes gaps, sharpens understanding, and creates results that learning alone never can. Action gives knowledge context. When you apply what you know, you discover what works, what doesn't, and what needs adjustment. This process deepens understanding far beyond theory. You stop guessing and start learning from reality. Mistakes become teachers. Success becomes feedback. Each action adds clarity, making knowledge practical instead of abstract. This is how competence is built, not by knowing more, but by doing more. Confidence is another byproduct of applied knowledge. Confidence does not come from knowing the answer. It comes from proving to yourself that you can act, adapt, and recover. Every time you take action based on what you know, you reinforce belief in your ability to handle challenges. Even imperfect action builds confidence because it creates evidence of capability. Waiting to act until you feel confident reverses the natural order. Confidence follows action, not the other way. Around, fear often blocks application. Fear of failure, judgment, or imperfection convinces people to delay action until conditions feel safer. Knowledge becomes a shield that justifies inaction, but fear thrives in stillness and imagination. Action disrupts fear by shifting focus from imagined outcomes to real tasks. Once you move, fear loses intensity and momentum takes over. Applied knowledge becomes a weapon against doubt because it proves that progress is possible even when conditions are not ideal. Action also creates discipline. Knowing what to do is easy, doing it consistently is what separates intention from results. Applied knowledge builds habits, and habits shape identity. Over time, repeated action turns effort into routine and discipline into character. You stop relying on motivation because action becomes automatic. Knowledge transforms into skill, and skill transforms into mastery through repetition. Another powerful effect of applying knowledge is clarity. Overthinking often comes from too much theory and not enough practice. Action simplifies decisions by producing real-world feedback. Instead of wondering what might happen, you see what actually happens. This clarity saves time, energy, and emotional strain. You stop being stuck in analysis and start moving with purpose. Applied knowledge also builds resilience. When things don't work out, action teaches you how to recover. You learn that setbacks are not endings but adjustments. Each attempt strengthens adaptability and problem-solving ability. This resilience cannot be learned from books or ideas alone. It must be experienced. Through action, you develop trust in your ability to navigate uncertainty and keep moving forward. Knowledge without action often leads to frustration. You know it needs to change, but nothing changes. This gap creates self-doubt and dissatisfaction. Action closes that gap. Even small steps create progress, and progress restores momentum. Once momentum exists, growth accelerates. Action turns stagnation into movement and intention into achievement. Ultimately, knowledge is only potential energy. Action converts it into kinetic energy that moves your life forward. Understanding is important, but it is incomplete without application. True power comes from using what you know, testing it, refining it, and repeating it. When knowledge is applied through action, it shapes behavior, builds confidence, creates results, and transforms identity. That is when learning becomes living and knowing becomes doing. Action creates clarity, confidence, and real-world skill because movement reveals what thinking alone never can. When you stay in your head, everything feels complex, overwhelming, and uncertain. You imagine problems before they exist and doubt before it's necessary. Action cuts through that noise. The moment you move, uncertainty begins to dissolve because reality replaces speculation. You stop guessing and start seeing, and that visibility is what creates clarity. Clarity does not come from waiting until everything makes sense. It comes from engagement. When you take action, even imperfect action, you receive feedback. You learn what works, what needs adjustment, and what truly matters. This feedback simplifies decisions. Instead of juggling endless possibilities, you focus on what is directly in front of you. Each step forward narrows confusion and sharpens direction. Over time, clarity becomes a natural outcome of consistent action. Confidence is also born through action. It is not something you wait for or think your way into. Confidence grows when you prove to yourself that you can act despite uncertainty. Every time you take a step forward, you reinforce belief in your ability to handle challenges, even when results are no. Ideal, confidence still grows because you learn that you can adapt, recover, and continue. This self-trust compounds with each experience, turning hesitation into decisiveness. Action also neutralizes fear. Fear thrives on imagination and inactivity. When you remain still, your mind creates worst-case scenarios that feel real and overwhelming. Action interrupts this cycle. Once you engage, your attention shifts from fear to execution. You become focused on what needs to be done next instead of what might go wrong. Fear loses power when it is confronted through movement, and confidence takes its place. Real-world skill is developed only through practice. Knowledge can explain a process, but skill is built through repetition and experience. Action transforms theory into competence. Each attempt refines technique, timing, and judgment. Mistakes are no longer failures, they are lessons that improve performance. Over time, these lessons accumulate into mastery. This is how skill becomes instinctive rather than intellectual. Action also builds adaptability. In the real world, conditions are rarely perfect or predictable. Acting exposes you to variation, challenge, and change. Through this exposure, you learn to adjust quickly and effectively. This adaptability becomes a powerful skill in itself, allowing you to navigate uncertainty with confidence and flexibility. The more you act, the more capable you become of handling the unexpected. Another important outcome of action is momentum. Once you start, movement creates energy. Small actions lead to larger ones, and progress fuels motivation. This momentum reinforces confidence because you can see tangible evidence of growth. Momentum also makes clarity easier because you are no longer starting from zero, you are building on experience. Action strengthens decision-making. Each decision made through action improves judgment. You learn to assess situations more accurately, anticipate challenges, and respond effectively. Over time, decisions become faster and more confident because they are informed by experience rather than speculation. This decisiveness further strengthens confidence and clarity. Ultimately, action is the bridge between potential and performance. It transforms ideas into results, fear into confidence, and confusion into clarity. Real-world skill emerges not from knowing what to do, but from doing it repeatedly and learning along the way. When you commit to action, you unlock growth, sharpen capability, and build the confidence that comes only from lived experience. Learning without doing can feel productive, intelligent, and safe, but over time it becomes a hidden trap. It creates the illusion of progress while quietly blocking real growth. Information alone does not demand change. It does not require risk, exposure, or discomfort. That is why it can become a form of comfort. When learning replaces action, it allows you to stay in control, avoid failure, and protect the ego, all while convincing yourself that you are moving forward. In reality, growth has stalled. Comfort is not always obvious. It often disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself you just need to learn a little more, understand a little deeper, or wait until you feel more confident. This delay feels responsible, but it slowly reinforces avoidance. The mind begins to associate learning with safety and action with danger. Over time, this association strengthens fear and weakens confidence, making it harder to step forward even when you are capable. Learning without doing keeps you in theory instead of reality. In theory, everything works perfectly. There are no consequences, no mistakes, and no feedback. Reality is different. Real progress requires engagement, adjustment, and exposure to UNC, or tainty. When you avoid doing, you avoid feedback. Without feedback, knowledge remains untested and shallow. You may know what should work, but you never discover what actually works. This pattern also feeds self-doubt. The more knowledge you accumulate without action, the more aware you become of what you do not know. Instead of confidence, you develop hesitation. You begin to feel unqualified despite being informed. Action reverses this pattern by building evidence of capability. Doing shows you that you can learn by adapting, not by waiting. Learning-only behavior also limits identity growth. Identity is shaped by behavior, not information. You do not become skilled, confident, or capable by knowing about those traits. You become them by practicing them. When learning replaces doing, identity remains unchanged. You stay the same person with more information rather than becoming a new person with new capabilities. Comfortable learning avoids risk. Growth demands risk. Action exposes you to mistakes, judgment, and uncertainty, but those experiences are what build resilience and skill. Avoiding action to stay comfortable may feel safe in the moment, but it creates long-term dissatisfaction. You know you are capable of more, yet you are not expressing it. This gap between potential and performance creates frustration. Another danger is perfectionism. Learning without doing often supports the belief that you must be fully ready before you begin. This belief delays action indefinitely because readiness is never complete. Growth does not wait for perfection, it responds to participation. Imperfect action produces real progress, while perfect plans without action produce nothing. Over time, this comfort-based learning weakens discipline. You become accustomed to consuming instead of creating, preparing instead of performing. Momentum disappears, confidence fades. Momentum is built by acting before you feel fully ready because readiness is not a destination you arrive at. It is a state that grows through experience. Waiting to feel ready keeps you stuck at the starting line, endlessly preparing while opportunities pass by. Acting before you feel ready breaks this cycle. It creates movement, and movement creates energy. Once energy exists, progress becomes easier, confidence increases, and momentum begins to compound. Readiness is often confused with certainty. People believe they need total clarity, confidence, or assurance before taking action. In reality, certainty rarely comes first. Growth happens in motion, not in waiting. When you act despite uncertainty, you teach yourself that you can handle discomfort and adapt as you go. This lesson is far more valuable than feeling temporarily prepared. Each step forward reduces fear and replaces it with experience. Momentum thrives on small actions. You do not need to take massive leaps to build it. One decision, one attempt, one imperfect move is enough to shift your state. Once you begin, resistance weakens. What felt overwhelming starts to feel manageable. The mind responds to progress with motivation, and motivation fuels further action. This cycle turns hesitation into flow. Acting before you feel ready also rewires your relationship with fear. Fear loses power when it is confronted through action. Instead of waiting for fear to disappear, you move with it. Over time, fear becomes a signal to act rather than a reason to stop. This shift strengthens courage and resilience, making it easier to take future risks with confidence. Momentum also creates clarity. When you move, you gain feedback. Feedback guides your next step. Each adjustment sharpens direction and improves performance. Without action, clarity remains theoretical. With action, clarity becomes practical. You stop using and start learning from real outcomes. Confidence grows alongside momentum. Every action taken before readiness proves that you are capable of learning in motion. You begin to trust yourself more, not because everything went perfectly, but because you handled what came next. This self-trust becomes the foundation of consistent action and long-term growth. Acting early also builds discipline. Discipline is strengthened through repetition, not intention. Each time you act before feeling ready, you reinforce the habit of movement over hesitation. This habit compounds, making future action easier and more natural. Ultimately, momentum is not the result of perfect timing or complete readiness. It is the result of choosing action when conditions are imperfect. When you move before you feel ready, you unlock progress, build confidence, and create a forward force that carries you further than preparation ever could.